You're listening to the Perth Property Show, Australia's only weekly property podcast by West Australian experts for West Australian listeners. Catch your latest episode every Monday at 7 a.m.
Good morning, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Perth Property Show. I'm your host, Trent Fleskins, talking finance today, and we have one of WA's top brokers, Sam Carrello from Napoleon Finance. Sam, thanks for coming in, mate.
All right, thanks for having me.
Today we are talking something really niche. It's LMI waivers. Now, a lot of people might not have ever heard of what this is about. They know what LMI is. I think a lot of people get stung with it these days because much smaller percentage of people are saving that 20% than maybe back in the day. Right, so a lot of people have heard about LMI, lender's mortgage insurance, but a lot of people wouldn't have heard about waivers. And there are, interestingly, quite a few industries where this waiver can be applied to you as a client. It's all about picking the right bank. So let's get a bit of an explanation as to what that waiver is and when it applies, and broadly, which banks are playing that game.
Yeah, so the LMI waiver is for clients in, I guess, specific industries or fields.
Professions,
yep. So typically it's the big four who like to do it, along with St. George Bank West. They're the main ones. So what it means is typically you need a 20% deposit to forego mortgage insurance. We have some lenders who will do a 10% deposit, no mortgage insurance, even 5%. I've even seen some borrow 100% of the purchase price with no mortgage insurance, which is pretty niche. Typically, the banks are looking for your medico fields, accountants as well, lawyers. I've done a physio, geologist. There are a few different areas as well, so it's always important when you're speaking to your broker, ask the question. Usually, proof that we need, for example, an accountant, you'd have to be a CA or CPA. You just need to provide your membership certificate. Some banks may also have minimum income thresholds, for example, $150,000 on the application. But when you look at the savings that you're making on your mortgage insurance, it's definitely worthwhile.
Give us some examples first up. On a $500,000 mortgage, if you're at 90%, what LMI would you be saving there?
So for a $500,000 mortgage at 90%, you're probably paying about $9,000 to $10,000 in mortgage insurance.
Okay.
Obviously that doesn't get paid up front, it gets put onto your loan. So
it's still gone at some point in time. It's money you're never going to get.
Correct, right? And you're going to pay interest on it as well.
What about on a mil?
A mil, it's up around $24,000 to $25,000.
So there's really a benefit there to ask the question. If you have a profession where you might be a part of an association, whether it's a quantity surveyor, geologist, any type of doctor, and any type of that level, lawyers, accountants, even we said physios, right, in that Medico for ANZ, which is a really good one.
Correct.
Ask the question. It's just about meeting a few of those criteria. Would you say it's still a responsible lending outcome, right? If you can demonstrate that you've as a broker, you've saved the client $10,000 to $20,000, but maybe the rate is 0.1 or 0.2% more than what the cheapest bank you could have found would have been with LMI. Is that not still a good outcome if over maybe a 3-year fixed rate you can demonstrate, well, look, we might be $1,000 up or whatnot on interest over that time, but we're saving you all that LMI?
What I'd say there too is the cheapest bank today is probably not going to be the cheapest bank tomorrow. They all take turns to release, a hot rate to get that business in. But yeah, completely agree. When you look at, let's take the $500,000 example. So you've got a $450,000 mortgage, $10,000 of mortgage insurance on top. For you to pay that off, typically, let's say it's going to take 20 years. You've then paid 20 years worth of interest on $10,000. So in the end, when you look at it and you do your modelling, most often better off by taking the LMI waiver.
All right. So let's give away a few of those trade secrets as to which banks, right? Because they're not all just doing all these. They have their niches. Yeah. I definitely see that, for example, ANZ, they're really big on their medico. So if you're a doctor, if you're a physio, give us some more examples. Dentist.
Midwife, chiropractor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyone in that level. If you're working in that industry, it might be worth even just asking your broker always, because your broker should be able to negotiate a better deal. All right.
Correct, yeah.
To go, look, have you looked at ANZ? I'm a midwife. And if you're maybe an accountant or a lawyer or a geologist or a quantity surveyor, Westpac do great deals focusing on those professions.
Correct, yeah. Westpac, CBA as well. CBA do like the lawyers and the accountants. ANZ, NAB do it as well. Not as common. They more focus on the medical side. And then, likes of Bank West and St. George, they also have a look at it. So it is those big four. I guess they've got the book size to be able to write the risk off. I mean, what the banks are doing here is they're probably more backing the client than they are the numbers, which is great to see. I mean, back in the old days, if you wanted a loan, you'd take your bank manager out for lunch and they'd make a call then and there, whether or not
Bring
I'm
a good
going
bottle of red.
Yeah, that's it. That's, buy them a nice lunch and got your new home. So with these guys, they're backing the client. So typically good employment prospects. If you're a doctor over in WA, you can probably get a job over east. So good employment prospects, stable employment, and usually these guys earn pretty good coin as well.
Yeah, so even if you do have these criteria, a lot of the time that's not a problem. In terms of minimum $150,000 a year as a doctor,
correct.
Those sort of things they come hand in hand. Fortunately for the doctors in our society. Now, as a fun little fact, we were chatting just before this morning about self-employed doctors. How silly can it get? Explain this for me. And I find this hilarious because I don't know a doctor who would need this, but. Anyway, this is something, just a little fun tidbit.
Yeah, again, there's a lender out there who are happy to lend up to 105% of the purchase price if you are a self-employed doctor. So what they do is they'll lend 90 or 95% on the home as a residential mortgage, and then that extra 5 or 10% if required, they can do as a business loan.
You're buying a $1.8 million house and your stamp duty ends up being $90,000. There's 105%. You could put down $0 to buy this $1.8 million house as long as you're a doctor and you make enough money, even though you have demonstrated no ability to save.
Personally, I'd be asking where the money's gone.
Yeah,
because
why?
responsible lending. But yeah, the bank's happy to back him in. So that bank definitely happy based on, I guess, the client.
So is your advice today as a broker to all young people coming out of school is to be a doctor, accountant, a lawyer or a physio and you'll end up with a better rate?
I'm going to say no. I think you got to do what you want to do. I've got a good mate of mine who is an accountant, loves it, loves the abacus, loves the debits and credits. But for me, I couldn't do accounting. I definitely wouldn't be an accountant to do a 10% no LMI. I'll cop the mortgage.
Yeah, fair enough. I think broken's all right.
Yeah.
All right, Sammy, thanks for this nice quick chat this morning, and we'll have you in again soon.
No worries. Thanks, mate.
Okay, Suburb Spotlight time, and we are talking about Ballajura. Really cool suburb, not one that you would drive through every day. It's somewhere I think you go when you go and hang out with a mate or maybe a sporting local cricket club or something like that. We've all been to Ballajura, but it's obviously got that lifestyle of not being stuck in the city while still also being quite accessible too. To help us out with that conversation, as always, our number one agent, it's Steve McMahon from Ray White Bursmac in Ballajura. Steve, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Trent. Thanks for having me.
Tell me something I don't know about Ballajura.
Well, that's an interesting thing you just said. A lot of people drive by. It is a huge suburb. I don't know if a lot of people are aware. There's something in the vicinity of about 18,700, I think. 18,700 people live in there.
That is big. That would be top 10.
Yeah, 6,800 odd homes in the area. So it is, and it's sort of broken into 5 areas, which has probably got the best kept secret in Perth, and I mean that sincerely. It's an area called the Lakes Estate, part of Ballajura.
I love it.
And it's the oasis, as they say. It's man-made lakes with some magnificent homes. And the interesting thing about Ballajura, again, as people probably not be aware, is that there's 3 types of markets in Ballajura. You've got your bottom end that you can sort of purchase in the vicinity between that 300 to 400 range. You got your middle range, and you've got your top end where just recently a sale in Ballajura in the Lakes area was just under $1 million. So
I'm sure that would have been more a few years ago too.
Yeah, it was. But you got properties that back onto the water. You have people's 1,000 square metres of lot with the backyard being the lake. You go a long way to get that in suburbia.
I tell you what, when I drive through the Lakes Estate, I pinch myself and think, am I in Princeton Estate in Stirling or am I on the river in Claremont? You've actually got water backing or water fronting or water backing properties where you could jump straight into the lake if you wanted to.
Absolutely. And and as I said earlier, that's the best kept secret in Perth. It's amazing. And the people that this is a raw statistic I just read not that long ago, and I can't recall where I picked it up, but there was finding that out of the last 100 sales, 73 of them are Ballajura. So they buy and sell in parts of Ballajura, e.g. the bottom South Ballajura, move to Central Ballajura, who may move to North Ballajura, who intend leave in the lakes. That's the pinnacle, that's the Rolls Royce, that's the Endeavour. So it's bizarre when you look at 73 sales out of 100 all ended up staying in Ballajura. It's like there's a force field. Once you're in, people don't want to leave.
Well, I think once you've found your lifestyle choice, where your family and your friends are, you have to have a really strong reason to leave.
Too true.
Most of the time when people are leaving, it's to try and climb that ladder socially or economically. The cool thing that you're explaining about Ballajura is you can do it and stay in the suburb.
Exactly. And people, it's only 14 k's out of the city. Now with the new freeway systems that surround Ballajura, it's so easy to get to the airport. So easy to get to the coast. 3 major shopping centres. You've got major schools throughout there. You've got playing fields, swimming pools.
Malaga Markets.
Malaga Markets, huge on a Saturday and a Sunday.
Yeah.
But it's massive, and you got your ice skating ring just on the back end of the state ice skating ring just at the back end of Ballajura. So it accomplishes a lot. It was 1970s, but I don't think a lot of people are aware that where Ballajura exists, or more importantly, what it has to offer.
Tell me about the Gateway WA project and how that North Link part of it with Hepburn Ave and whatnot has affected the area as well and the accessibility.
It's been amazing. It's absolutely, truly been amazing. The link roads around Ballajura are very well thought out, very easy and very accessible to get to. And it's helped with the saleability of areas in there, because people don't like to be sitting around in traffic lights and hanging around. They want to know they can get onto a freeway system, get into the airport within 10. They know they can get to the coast in 15. They know they can get into the city fairly quickly. So it's very good, very, very well laid out, very thoughtful. And it's, some freeway systems are a bit of a hindrance, but I think this one's quite effective.
So when Ballajura was first mapped out, first subdivided as a suburb, can you give us an idea of, or was it young families, what sort of ethnicities we were talking about, and how that's been changing over time?
It's amazing. I got a statistic I was looking at only this morning. The average age in the area is 35, and up to 35 to 40. Big percentage of those of the people in there. It's a low social economic area. 80% of them are owners. There's 1,000 odd renters in the area, so there's a good cross-section of people that come through and out of the area. There's a cultural area, as multicultural area. There's a big percentage of English, Vietnamese, Sudanese, Australians that are living in throughout the area of Ballajura, so that makes up the demographics of the area. But the freeway systems, as I say, just going back to that, is enormous, and I think that's the reason why people do get in there when they wish to stay in the area, because they like the fact that it's accessibility around.
A lot of double brick homes. Wouldn't see much fibre in Ballajura, would you?
No, very few.
That's a cool part of that, is that because these properties are double brick and they're of that vintage now where they probably need a lick of paint and a bit more, they're a great candidate for a renovation, especially for that young family looking to maybe make some sweat equity.
Absolutely. That's a very good point you make, because that big percentage of those homes are 4 bedrooms.
Big blocks,
very big blocks. I was actually looking at that. 3,700 homes are 4 bedrooms, 1,900 of them are 3 bedrooms on biggish blocks. So the zoning in the area has just changed from the council 17.5-35-40, meaning that you can have a backyard, Bad Lakes backyard, somewhere in the vicinity between 200 to 220 squares. Percentage of people are looking at that now because they've had that older home in the area. They most of them may own, so they can subdivide the backyard, get rid of the barbecue in the backyard, and build a home and move it on.
Price points. What does it take to buy a house at the cheapest price point in Ballajura?
Our median price today is $389,000. That's probably the only deterrent of the area, where the growth of Ballajura hasn't, and probably Perth hasn't risen either, but growth suburb is negative 6.3%. But that is not a negative, it's a positive from the point of view that when you come in, do your renovations, do your works, do what you have to do and subdivide backyards, then make a return out of that. If you can get into the area for $389, and as I said earlier, $1 million up to $1 million properties in the lakes, it's a cross division.
Would you say that most properties on a median side are closer to that median house price or below, or it's interesting that they've got such a low median house price, but also some very expensive houses in there. What's in between? Can you buy anything for $650,000 in Ballajura?
Yeah,
are you getting value there, or should you rather maybe stay on either end of the spectrum for either the luxury or the budget?
No, there's a big percentage of homes that sit in that 550 to 700 range. And again, you can see the sprinkling throughout the North Ballajura area, the Central Ballajura and the Lakes area. The big 4.2s, with all the works done, your family games, theatre rooms, pools, spas, workshops, things of that nature. I am finding traditionally over the last sales that we've done over the last 12 months, a big percentage of people are looking for properties in the area of Ballajura with workshops. So they want the land, they want the workshop so they can tinker on their cars in there. So there's a lot of tradies that come throughout the area. And that's a positive. You can't get that in other suburbs surrounding Ballajura because the land's not available. They're all
at that price.
Or at that price.
Yeah. You've got quiet times to maybe, tinker on the boat or the car.
Exactly.
The toys.
Caravan. I could not tell you the amount of people on my database who said, Steve, help me find something that I can park my caravan, park my boat, park my fourth car that I'm tinkering with at the moment. It's huge numbers.
Yeah, I think we start to make a picture of that archetypal young family with the two kids and the tradie husband who likes his toys, and that you got that accessible option there.
Exactly.
And at the same time, you've got that builder who's done exceptionally well, and he's built his own home at the back of the lakes area there, and it would rival any house in Perth.
Absolutely, that's exactly how it is.
Take me back again. Who is buying off you right now? If you think your last 10 buyers offer you, how do you characterise them?
First-home buyers, very active, very, very active indeed, the first-home buyers. So if I had a percentage of 10 people, 7 would be first-home buyers, 2 would be the medium buyer, 1 would be... Investors are still floating, few and far between because they can't purchase the price and then get the yield returns on their rent. So they're out there, they're just nibbling. First-home buyers are active because, as I said, and I'll repeat, you can't get into an area like Ballajura for the price range under that 430,000 in any other suburb and get the size home that people are chasing. So that's why it's making the first-home buyers very active.
They are big homes. Hey, let's spend a bit more time on the subdivision side. Now, most people in Perth wouldn't know that you can subdivide in Ballajura.
Correct.
When the City of Swan changed their zoning a few years ago, it really was all about everywhere else. And you look at their mapping, Ballajura was just tacked onto the end. You had to really look for it and go, Jesus, they changed the zoning in Ballajura there. What I find interesting, though, is for me, at least, and I hope you would agree with this, Steve, at least in this cycle, I don't see, both on a financial perspective, but also on a lifestyle perspective, much reason to be cutting these houses up yet.
Oh, a good point, Trent. The subdivision of the area, and it strategically understand what the council are trying to achieve, the density areas as such, by having secondary type 2-storey home units, villas built in their backyards as such, is going to help Ballajura increase their size and their value. And I think that's what the council are trying to achieve.
I think they're meeting their density targets. That's what I think they're trying to do. I don't think they've thought very well through it at the demographic of people who want to live in Ballajura. They're there because they want their space and they like their backyards.
But you're right. They're 17.5. They've got restrictions on them because, as I say, there's only a sprinkling of their larger blocks through there. So therefore, if you're 17.5, 35 or 40 and you need 220, 240 square metres with access down the side, the biggest issue that we're finding is the access to the rear.
Because most of the houses are pretty big houses.
Oh, the blocks, they spread across the block, not necessarily deep.
Exactly,
they are wide.
Yeah.
So therefore, they haven't got. That's the only hiccup. For the amount of people, the inquiries I've had for people, can we do this? And I'm thinking, well, where are you going to put your garage or your carport or whatever?
You have to knock the house down to do it, and there's no money to do that.
No money to do that. And so when you explain that to them, they look at you and they think, there goes my dream. That's the difficulty. There's the sprinklings. There's some out there, of course, but you can't get to the rear.
Possibly corner blocks will be the first thing to go, where you can create 2 street frontage houses. They might be nice flagship corner townhouses or whatnot, or just nicer, bigger blocks, because you've got around the 700 square meters, that sort of vintage,
and larger.
Yep. So you're getting there pretty easily, in my opinion, in that space. But I think it's a matter of right now, most people aren't looking there because they didn't even realise. And maybe some people that are listening now go, "Geez, I'll have a look." If no one else is looking, I'll have a look. And you'll find something. But generally, I think you really have to put the case towards, whilst there's so many options out there right now in Ballajura for good living at a good affordable price, what is a buyer going to want to do by buying the land at the back or the house at the back for that 400s when they could buy something fantastic that's existing with a full backyard and maybe subdivide 10 years from now at that price point anyway?
Very, very true. That's exactly what is happening. We've got those two diverse type of people. One is exactly that, the younger family, the first-home buyers with a thought pattern or a dream of tomorrow, subdividing. So if I could buy a lot today with an opportunity to subdivide tomorrow, that is a big percentage of people because that's their dream.
There you go.
That's their goal.
You might have a lot of hidden developers in your 7 out of 10 owner-occupiers there.
We're finding now that there's a saturation point of Belgas, saturation point of Nollamara, saturation point of Westminster. So the developers, investors as such, are moving down the street, and that's why Ballajura now has got a little bit of a tick because they're looking at it now because those areas I just mentioned are now at saturation points.
Yeah.
Can't get their returns, as we said earlier in the podcast. Never thought, or people don't think that Ballajura had that. Well, available. Now they're finding that is available. So now, in turn, I think that's where it's going to be a big growth.
We spoke about the median house price. All right,
Yes.
It was $389.
$389.
Now, this is a tough one for you because it's quite low.
Yes.
I ask every number one agent who comes in here this one question. If you had $389,000 in your pocket, what would you buy?
What would I buy in Ballajura today? I can get myself a quality 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom on a decent lot, garage, maybe possibly a workshop, with a facility tomorrow to put my pool, my spa, my gazebo. So there's growth in the backyard. So as the younger people today and their families are growing, there's an opportunity to get into that. Then they do their renovations, do their house changes as such, and then they turn that into a 4 and then reap the reward.
Older house, ready for renovation with the land size for lifestyle.
Exactly.
Easy.
Easy.
Steve McMahon, fantastic chat about Ballajura. Thank you very much. We'll have you in again for an update, probably in early 2020, I think.
Look forward to it, Trent. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Perth Property Show. If you've only just joined the conversation, you can catch up by heading over to our website, perthpropertyshow.com.au, subscribing to the podcast, or joining our Facebook page. Don't forget to tune in next Monday at 7 a.m. for more expert insights, local analysis, and suburb spotlights. Happy hunting!